Welcome to Get Organized at Work. I'm your host, Kayla Fahey-Ahrndt, healthcare leader, mom of three, and your go-to guide for ditching the chaos and taking control of your workday. This is the show where we turn overwhelming to-do lists into clear, actionable plans so you can crush your goals and show up as your best self at work and in your life. Whether you're here for strategies to stay ahead or systems to simplify your workday, you're in the right place. Let's get organized, have some fun, and make this year your best year in your career yet. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to Get Organized at Work podcast. My name's Kayla. I'm your host today, and we're going to be talking about probably 5 signs. I got some bonus signs that you need better organizational systems at work. So I'm going to go through each of them and help you recognize these signs that your organizational systems aren't serving you and how I can help you with that and give you some tips and pointers from my experience. So have you ever felt completely drained by work? Like maybe you can't shut off your brain even when you're home. You're like constantly checking your email or maybe your Teams chat when you're not at work and you're supposed to be at home. Like no matter how much effort you put in, things are always maybe slipping through the cracks. You're just tired, you're exhausted, you're behind, and it's starting to take a toll on you. So I wanted to share just a quick personal story about this. When I was, let's say, I'm trying to think of the year, probably 2016, I would say, I became this technical specialist in the blood bank, and I had never done all these big projects that were expected of me. I had people reporting to me who had decades of experience, and I had three years. um, and so there was definitely some imposter syndrome going on. And I didn't have kids yet. I was dating my fiance, who is now my husband. He was in medical school. We were all busy. And I worked myself to the bone, man. I worked 12, 13, 14-hour days just trying to talk to day shift, evenings, nights, make sure things got validated. I work in a laboratory, so get new equipment up, like all the things people wanted. I was like, I got to take care of it. This is my job. I am solely responsible. Like I'm going to take accountability for it. I want to be like the person that just like makes everyone's day better. And that, I mean, in theory, like that's a great idea, but quickly I became super burnt out and I started resenting the job that I once was so excited to have. And that was kind of a dark place for me because it was like I never wanted something I loved so much to feel so icky, right? Like I was so disappointed that how did I get here? How did I get so exhausted and like I'm a bright and shiny human and I don't want to get jaded, right? I did not want to get jaded. And one of the things that helped me realize that I was sort of in this cycle of burnout and didn't have great systems to help me was after I had my daughter. So in 2018, we had our first kiddo and she was amazing. And it was really that eye-opening moment like, wow, I only get a few hours with her every day when I'm working, right? Being a working parent is hard. For me, I love to work. I love my career. I like what I do. It makes me feel like I can use my skills and my brain in a cool way. I'm a scientist. I'm a nerd. I love that. But I also love being a mom. Love taking care of my daughter, seeing her laugh, making her laugh, having fun with her, having all those moments with her. But realizing that if I want to have both, uh, there's trade-offs. And one of the things is just that you might be so exhausted from work, but you still have to leave some in the tank for yourself and for your family, or else you've got nothing. And the time that we have together is short. So we've got to make the most of it. So what I realized was that, oh, wow, I need to start leaving work on time. And actually, when is my work day end? I would start working at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning so that I could touch base with night shift and day shift. And then sometimes I wouldn't leave till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night after I talked with evenings and then started getting more of my work done when I had less interruptions. And I realized, wow, now that I have a kiddo, well, number one, I've got to pick her up from daycare on time. But number two, I don't want to only have an hour or two with her in the evenings. I want to have more time. So I was like, okay, you need to start leaving. Your hours are 7 to 3:30, but maybe you want to set a hard stop at 4 o'clock if you go over, if meetings go over. You need to leave. You need to start on time. So this is going to be a good segue into sign number one, that you need better organizational systems at work to help you be more rejuvenated, have more energy, feel excited about your work again, not feel completely drained, and to prevent and to help you climb out of burnout. So, sign number one is you're always leaving late or just struggling with time in general. So, here's a scenario: your day never seems to end on time, whether you're staying late, missing deadlines, constantly rushing. Maybe you feel like you start your day with good intentions. You're like, okay, I got this. I got my list of to-dos. But then something happens where somebody needs something from you, or you get sidetracked. You're like, squirrel. And there's something urgent. A request becomes made from you, or maybe an email comes through and it just sets your mood off, or there are last minute tasks to be done. This leads to chronic stress, poor work-life balance, and frustration. And one of the other reasons is because when you are jumping from thing to thing to thing like that, it's called context switching. Computers can do this because they basically have commands that say, okay, now do this thing, now do this thing. But humans are not very good at doing that efficiently. People say there's like studies out there that say that it takes you about 20 minutes to reset yourself once every time you have a distraction or change modes. So it's not healthy for you when you're always in reactive mode and not on top of what you're going to be working on. This means you're not proactive. Chips away at the personal time that you could have after work or before work, and leads to resentment towards your work because you feel like your work's holding you back. So this impacts your family time, hobbies, and even sleep, right? Like if you're constantly thinking about work or worried about that you're behind or what fire is going to come up tomorrow, it's anxiety. It drives you to have anxiety. So in my course that's coming up, I'm going to help you create a structured workflow that protects your time. We're going to talk all about leader standard work and time blocking techniques to help you get ahead of these tasks, to shift from putting out the fires to working with clarity and focus. So I'm definitely going to drop some links in the show notes or in the description below if you're listening on YouTube. To the first episode is going to be all about leader standard work and how to stop doing it all and really figure out what are the most important things so that you can be more in control of your time. So I will list the signs, like sign number one, you're leaving late. And then under that, I'll leave episodes related to that I've already done that you can go back to, little nuggets, maybe pull back from the archive or some more recent ones so you can get real tips for creating standard work and time blocking and be more in control of your time. So check those links out. But I will just say, if you take anything away from today's episode, the number one thing I would do is make sure you know what your end time is. A lot of people are aware of when they start their workday. But if you have a desk job and you're not punching in and out, or maybe you are punching in and out, but you can get overtime, it's really easy to just stay working and not even, have some sort of time blindness. So make sure you know, okay, today my day ends at 4 o'clock and that's when I'm leaving, and it's a non-negotiable. And if you do struggle with time blindness, figure out a way where you can make time more visible or audible. So if you need to get a timer, there are lots of timers on Amazon for ADHD or for children. Great to use in the morning with your kids when you're like 5 minutes. They have no concept of time. Set it for 5 minutes. The timer will go off. That's been really helpful for some of the people that I've worked with. So wanted to throw that out there. Sign number two that your organizational systems need some work is you've got brain fog. Maybe you feel cynical or you just feel plain burnt out. So the problem is that you're exhausted, mentally checked out, and maybe you're struggling to focus. Do you feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the work? Like you just feel like you have too much, or you have a hard time prioritizing? One thing I'm going to do on LinkedIn, if you want to participate, is after this episode, I'm going to post about it, and there'll be a poll on my page asking what you feel like is the hardest part or the most draining part of your work. I forget how I phrased it, but I did the same poll last year. And not to bias you, but the thing that always comes up as the highest rank the last 2 times I've done this poll is competing priorities. People really struggle with, how do I manage multiple competing priorities at work and feel like I'm actually doing a good job managing those things? So if you're having a hard time prioritizing, you're not alone. And maybe work feels like an endless cycle and you're losing motivation. You're just like, this just feels so heavy. I'm exhausted. So when everything feels urgent, nothing actually gets the priority it deserves. And that's why it's not healthy for you. Constant stress can lead to poor performance, lack of creativity, and even health issues. I did a whole talk at the American Society for Clinical Lab Sciences. Um, I think it was in Wisconsin a couple of years ago at one of their conferences. My talk was on burnout, or that was one of the topics. And I talked about cortisol levels and also heart issues. When we have stress, this can lead to real physical and mental health issues. So we need to give ourselves space to breathe, strategize, reset, find a way to enjoy the work. And that's with clear systems. So in my course, I'm going to help you learn organizational workflows that help you reduce decision fatigue. Some of them are going to be around projects, project roadmaps, active project lists, how to prioritize, sort of what are the different questions you can ask yourself. And one of the wonderful things that I read at one point when I was doing research on priorities is that the word priority, when it was first became popular, it was literally singular priority. And you notice at work and at home too, we talk about our priorities, plural. Well, back when the word became, popular, it was singular. People weren't talking about their priorities because the idea is that you have one priority. The priority is the main thing. Keep the main thing the main thing, right? So when we have multiple priorities, multiple main things, no wonder it's difficult for us to manage. So if you're a leader that manages a team or you're a leader of leaders, you will have the plural priorities because you're helping everyone manage their own singular priority and in some cases multiple priorities. So I would love the opportunity to teach you my tactics and how I do this and how I build routines to bring ease and structure so that my brain isn't in constant overdrive. I feel like the biggest thing is, like I mentioned earlier, helping you reduce decision fatigue or be able to make decisions quickly. So many of us, when we have brain fog or feeling sort of burnt out, it's really hard to make decisions and we have analysis paralysis. So that's something that I've had a lot of experience with in leading leaders that struggle with it too. And so I cannot wait to teach you my systems. Again, I will link related show notes on episodes I've done all about how to organize your projects, how to make sure that you reduce decision fatigue by making your work visible. So I will link episodes there so you can dive on into those. All right. Sign number 3 is you feel like you can't take time off, but you desperately need it. There's so many out there that I've talked to that hesitate to take paid time off or just an unscheduled day off, or I guess a scheduled day, like, hey, I'm just not working today. I'm going to schedule my calendar around it because you fear everything will fall apart and you feel guilty when you're not available. Even when you take time off, you check emails or you check your Slack or you check your team's chat because you're worried that you're going to miss something. So this is not healthy because you can never be effective if you don't recharge. My boss took us out on a team retreat the other day, and I said, I feel like I don't even deserve this day. And because I had so much to do. And her response was, well, hey, like recharge today, and that's going to help you be even more energized and ready to hit the ground running on Monday. And she was right. We all need to just take some time, take a moment, take a beat so that we can be our best the next day. So if you don't do this, if you don't rejuvenate or recharge, it affects your decision making, your patience, the satisfaction you have with your job, and your job should be able to support your life. It should not be consuming you, uh, in my opinion. So I read this book. It's called The Fear of or The Joy of Missing Out, right? It's a play on FOMO, the fear of missing out. And in the book, the author says, she talks a lot about values and how we want to have our work values be in alignment with your personal values, right? Like, obviously, our workplaces are going to have their own mission and vision statements, but in general, you want to have similar values to the company you're working for so that you feel good about working there, right? She talks about how people mention, your work life and your home life and how they're two separate. And on this podcast, I always talk about how we are one human. It's hard to show up separately and compartmentalize. I'd rather people bring their whole selves to work and we just be humans. And something I love that she said in the book was that it's not a work and a home life, it's one life. And that just hit me in the gut because you think about the amount of time you have with your family and just for yourself living, right? Like, let's be optimistic and say we all live to 100 years old. Well, I'm 34, I'm going to be 35 in a couple months. And that means like a third of my life's over. So I think it's okay if I take a day off here and there to enjoy it and to rejuvenate so that when I come back to the work that I love, it's fun to do. It makes me also remind myself that, hey, my kids are going to grow up and they're only little for so long. My daughter is going to be 7 this year. And let's say she decides to hang out with us till she's 18, which we know, we're not, we never know, right? We never know what our kids want to do. But let's say she goes to college when she's 18. That means we only have like 11 summers left with her to hang out at our house before she's off on her own. So time flies, my friend. So I think we should take advantage of rejuvenation, and obviously we want to be responsible about it, right? Like if you're able to plan ahead, but know that your work's going to be there when you come back, and that taking an hour off or a day off, even for a mental health day, is going to do you wonders. So we're going to talk a lot about this. We're going to dive into delegation and how to set clear boundaries in my course that's coming up and it's going to be available at the end of the month. And so I can't wait to talk more about this. This is always such a hot topic because when you're in that cycle of burnout, you do feel guilty because maybe you aren't as productive as you'd hope you'd be because it's sort of this cyclical thing. And until you decide to get off the hamster wheel and just take a moment, it's going to feel hard. And I can help you with that. So I will link some of my episodes on burnout and setting boundaries. There's a few of them that go way back into the archives in the show notes or the description below. So you can check those out and dive on deeper. All right, I have 2 bonus signs that you might need better systems, and I kind of already talked about one of them. One is you have FOMO and you can't disconnect from work. You feel like you got to check every email and be in every single meeting, and you worry about missing out on key decisions, or maybe even losing influence or being seen at the table. I will definitely talk about that in my course to help you, manage your workload strategically so you can disconnect without having any fear. And the second bonus sign that you might need better systems is you feel like you need to fix everything. You take on way more than you should, and you struggle to say no. You overextend yourself, trying to be the go-getter, the go-to problem solver, right? You're like, oh, raising my hand, I got that. And in my course, we're going to talk about prioritizing and setting boundaries so you focus on the right things. You can still be seen as a highly productive individual, but better yet, you're going to be an amazing leader and professional, and you're not going to be seen as the doer. You're going to be seen as someone who gets things done. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing all the things and being the hero leader and swooping in. You're going to be contributing to growth of others in your organization and showing how you can elevate yourself. So those are the 5 signs that you might need better organizational systems at work. Let me go over them one more time. Sign number 1, you're always leaving late or struggling to leave on time. Sign number 2, you've got brain fog, feel cynical or burnt out all the time. Sign number 3 is you feel like you can't take time off, but you desperately need it. And then the bonus signs that you might need better systems are you have FOMO and you can't disconnect from work, and you feel like you need to fix everything. So if you resonated with these signs and you're like, wow, Kayla, you're reading my mind. I've been there. I understand. And what I know is it's time for a change. So like I mentioned last week in the episode, and I talked about my upcoming course, I just wanted to share that I can help you stop the cycle of overwhelming create systems that work through my podcast episodes that are already out. And of course, I've linked those for you as well. But just keep in mind that at the end of the month, it's going to be Monday, March 31st and into April 1st. That's when my new course is launching, the Get Organized at Work. I think I am going to call it the blueprint because it is going to be kind of a roadmap showing you how to stop the cycle of overwhelm and create systems at work. So inside the program, I'm going to help you take back control of your time, set systems for less stress and better productivity, and finally disconnect from work without feeling guilty. So get excited. Get excited if you are interested in the course. The link is in the description below or in the show notes to join my free community. That is where I'm going to be sharing information first about it. And you're going to want to be in there because I'm going to be doing some really fun activities leading up to the course launch. And you're going to want to be in there leading up to the course launch so you can get all the details as well as be on my email list so you hear about it. So in closing, I just wanted to ask you, which sign resonated with you most? Let me know. I'd love it if you leave a rating or review, or if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. Otherwise, hop over to my community and answer the question that I'm going to put in the poll there about which sign you struggle with the most. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you'll probably see the post there too. All right, I'm so happy that you joined me for today's episode, and I hope that my tips and strategies can help you fix one or all of those things. All right, until next time, I'll see you later. Take care.